Hello viewers watching at home, this is BrandPlus TV and you're watching Dinner Guide. I am your host Chef Andy and I'll be making something really interesting today. On the table, as you can see from home, I have got some chicken breast, regular kind, some chopped red onion, some paprika powder, some cream, cooking cream, regular cream, some cayenne pepper, some salt, some cashew nuts, some bay leaf, about 2 pieces, a bit of sesame seeds, a bit of chopped black olives. I've got a bit of garlic, a bit of coriander, some zucchini and a red bell pepper. And in the glass here, right in front of me, so this is basically chicken stock. You can make this fresh. I recommend, if you have the time to make your own stock, please do. If you don't have the time to make stock for this particular dish, you can also incorporate a chicken cube. Just dilute it with some hot water, give it a good mix, and you basically have the same thing. So without further ado, we're gonna just jump quickly into a short break, and when we do come back, we're gonna be jumping straight into our chicken, which is going to be a bit creamy. We're gonna be incorporating some cream in there, some zucchini, some red bell pepper pesto that we're gonna make from scratch. And we're gonna also be having some sesame seeds and some black olives to go with that. So see you after the short break. Grab your pens, grab your papers, let's get cooking. Hello viewers at home, welcome back to another show of Dinner Guide. So for those who missed out, we were just introducing our ingredients. We're just about to get into this interesting dish. So I'll just take you again back to our ingredients on the table. I've got some chicken breast, very lean, very fresh. I've got some red chopped onion, some paprika powder, some cooking cream, some cayenne pepper, some regular salt, some cashew nuts, a bit of bay leaves, just 2 pieces, a bit of sesame seeds, a bit of black olives, red bell pepper. I've got some courgette, or if most of you like to call it courgette, so I'm gonna use that term. It's a little more easier to remember. I've got just 1 piece of garlic, a bit of chopped coriander, and on the glass here I have some chicken stock. You can use fresh chicken stock, you can make your own, or if you don't have time, you can always substitute it with a chicken cube. I also have some cooking oil, just regular vegetable oil. So I'm just gonna jump straight right into it. So the first part of the dish we're gonna work on is our pesto. I'm just gonna give my pan a little heat there. So I'm just gonna start by showing you a bit of technique of how you can work with your red bell pepper at home. So it's very simple. I like to just break that off like that. So what you do is you just hold your pepper, what we're gonna do is gonna take this side and this side off. So I'm just gonna chop that off and do the same thing on the other side. So save those bits. As I said, I like to break the stalk off because then you get the perfect ring out of it, and this is something you don't wanna waste. So then we go straight to it. So I just take my knife, put a little incision from the side there, and what I'm gonna do, if you can see clearly, I'm just gonna press my knife and cut right across like so. So this is basically the quickest, easiest way to get your red pepper peeled and cored. A lot of viewers have been asking how best to try and save the waste out of your red bell pepper. As you can see, it speaks for itself. There's hardly any waste, so this is the best way to work with your red bell pepper. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna give that a rough chop. So we're gonna blend this anyway, so don't mind whichever cuts you use, just get some chunks on that. So we're just gonna chop through that like so. We're gonna save a little bit of that. So I'm just gonna give that a rough chop there. So easy peasy. So I'm gonna add all that to my pan. So my pan is nice and hot now, medium to low heat. I'm gonna drizzle some oil in there. So we're gonna give that a bit of time to heat up, get the pan nice and just before smoky. We don't wanna smoke up the whole studio, so we're just gonna give that a bit of time to heat. And then I'm gonna just go straight in with my red bell peppers, like so. I'm gonna drop the temperature a little bit. So you wanna cook this slightly at a lower temperature because you're not trying to rush the cooking process. Remember, we are gonna be throwing that into the blender later. So into that, I'm gonna add a bit of salt, just about half a teaspoon. I'm gonna go with a bit of cayenne pepper. And then I'm gonna go with a bit of paprika powder. And then I'm gonna get my coriander. And then I'm gonna grab also my 1 knob of garlic, simple to peel. So you just knock that on the top, peels off quite easily like so. So I'm just gonna give that a quick chop. So just roughly chop that, throw it in there, give your pan a bit of a shake, give it a good mix. Remember, this is cooking on low heat. You wanna keep the temperature steady. Then I'm gonna grab my coriander, just gonna give that a rough chop. Right, now we're gonna mix this in later while we throw everything else in the blender or in the food processor if you have one. So I'm gonna be blending all these ingredients. Remember, if you don't have the equipment that we're using on stage, there's techniques that you can use. So if you don't own one of this, you can alternatively chop your red pepper really fine. You want it almost as fine as the onions. So you just give it a nice chop. You can mix it up together. You're still gonna get that texture, but because I have a food processor, it saves me quite a bit of time. And then I'm gonna add just a little bit of my chicken stock. So we're gonna allow that to cook just a little bit. And while that continues, I'm gonna grab my zucchini. So for presentation purposes, we're gonna just want this to be a little chunkier. So it's a nice dish that will go with a side of rice. It might go with your pasta. So you wanna give it nice chunky sizes. So I'm just gonna show you how to get that done. So I'm just gonna cut through the center there, and I'm just gonna, using my knife, I'm just gonna go right through like that. So you're looking at about 2 centimeter thick chunks. Just gonna put that aside. I'm gonna chop another piece. So to this dish, about half a courgette is enough for one serving. If you're gonna cook for 2, I suggest just chop the whole thing. So I'm gonna give that a little time to cook down. On another pan, I'm just gonna switch this on quickly. Okay, like so. So to this, we're basically going to now brown our chicken. So I'm just gonna I'm gonna switch those 2 around, give you a better view of the stage. So to that pan that's on the heat now, what we wanna do is we wanna brown our chicken. So I'm just gonna show you how to do that. And basically, like I said, this is a dish you can make to order. You can make this beforehand. Very good for a nice light dinner. If you're not in the mood to cook, you can always make that in advance, reheat it in the microwave later, but of course fresh is always best. So I'm just gonna put my chunks all in there, and I'm just gonna add that to that pan, give it a nice little mix. Put that aside. So I'm just gonna grab my chicken now. So this is a typical regular broiler chicken breast. Just 1 piece is okay for 1 serving. And I'm just gonna take a bit of that off. So all you wanna do is you wanna get some nice level chunks, and one of the best ways to do that is to give the chicken a bit of a nice cut. So I like to cut my chicken this way. You can opt to cut it in cubes, but I like to cut it in slits. So all I do is I hold my knife at an angle, just have the breast about diagonally facing you, grab your knife and just go right through. So basically all you're looking for is those chunky, nice slices, just like that. So I'm just gonna cut that all the way. So very, very simple. You can also chop that in cubes if you prefer. You can chop it into tinier pieces if you've got young kids having that. But for grown-ups, this is pretty much the best way to do it. So I'm just gonna finish chopping that. Right now our pan should be nice and hot. Remember about medium to low temperature. Just gonna give the pan a bit of oil. So remember on this side, for those who missed out on the beginning of this part of the show, there's a bit of red bell pepper, there's a bit of courgette, a bit of coriander in there, fresh chopped coriander, tiny bit of oil, and then I also put in there a bit of cayenne pepper, a bit of paprika powder, and I'm just gonna let that cook down slowly. So I'm cooking that at medium to low heat. This has now been cooking for about 5 to 10 minutes, so I'm gonna give it about another 5 to 10 minutes and it'll just keep cooking slow. But I'll take you to this side of the stage now, and basically what we're gonna jump straight into doing now is we wanna brown our chicken. So I'm just gonna grab my tongs here. So remember, you wanna give your pan a bit of time to cook, a bit of time to heat up. It's recommended that you let your pan heat up because this is the best way to break down the oils. Don't throw your food right in a cold pan because you might miss the coloring bit, which you're just going to see now. So that is nice and hot. So I'm just gonna throw the chicken bits in there. Just one piece at a time, spread them all around. I'm just gonna put all those in my pan. Just gonna let that sizzle for a little bit. So basically at this stage, what we want to do is we wanna get a color around the meat, which is basically the process that I mentioned earlier, which is the searing process. So we're just gonna let that continue slowly. Low heat is recommended for this. Let it brown, let it cook through. So there's tricks to that. If you're gonna throw it in the oven, which you might, if you have an oven and you're gonna cook it in the oven, you could brown it at high heat, but take it off the heat early in time so that it doesn't go dry in the oven. But if you don't own an oven, it's still okay. You can still make this at home. Cook it at low temperature, let it take its time. Let it cook for about 4 to 5 minutes on each side and just keep checking it for doneness. So I'm just gonna let that continue cooking, and I'm gonna check on my red peppers on this end. So that's nice and cooked. It's looking good. I'm just gonna give it a bit of, just a pinch of salt for taste. Right, so the peppers are nicely cooked. They're nice and tender, beautiful colors in there. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna throw all that in a blender or a juicer if you have one. If a food processor is also next to you, please feel free to use it. So all I'm going to do is throw all those ingredients in there. So remember, this part of the dish, there's not much oil left. As you can see, there's not much running out of the pan. It's completely dry. So I'm just gonna set that aside. So now this is the final part of the stage where we are going to be making the pesto. So this is a very simple one that you can be able to do at home. I'm just gonna grab some chopped red onion now, about half a handful. Gonna throw that in there. I'm also going to incorporate a bit of cashew nuts. I recommend that you use any nuts that you can find that are not salted because the salt content will affect the flavor of your dish. So try use the nuts that are not cooked and preferably not salted. I'm just gonna add those in there. Just gonna give it a nice little shake. And then because the mixture is very dry, as you can see from the bottom, there's not much liquid in there. I'm just gonna add a bit of stock. So the stock is just basically going to help me be able to get that puree out of it, nice textures out of it. So I'm just gonna cover this quickly. And then what we're going to do is we're not gonna blend it right through, we're gonna do it in pulses. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna blend it in small speed, at high speed, but in small intervals. So I'll show you how that's done. So that goes in, and basically all you wanna do is just give it a bit of pulse like that. So you don't want it to be very much like a puree. It's just slightly having it a chop. Just gonna clean that mess a little bit. All right. So we're just gonna now have a look at that. So the chicken's now been cooking on the first side for about 4 to 5 minutes. We're now just gonna check on it. We're gonna give it a turn. As you can see, nice, beautiful brown color. Just gonna turn those around like that. So we're gonna allow that to cook for another 5 minutes on the other side. We're gonna also check on it. We're gonna be making sure that it's not too dry on the inside. Remember, this is only the browning stage. We're still gonna take this out of the heat and then we're gonna turn it into something creamy for later. So I'll just open this up and we're gonna have a look and see what our puree looks like now. Okay, so as you can see, nice chunky mixture, not too liquid, not much chunks in there. As you can see, very consistent. Nice colors in there. You got a bit of the green from the coriander. You got a bit of red from the red bell pepper. Nice aromas coming from there as well, from the cayenne and the paprika powder and the garlic. So all we're going to do is we're going to just leave that in a bowl. We're going to give that a few minutes just to sit. Right, so we're coming back to this side of the stage. Our chicken's nicely browning. So we're going to just let that cook down and we're going to take a short break. But when we do come back, we're going to get to the last part of the cooking process, whereby we're going to be incorporating the puree that we made from the courgette, the red bell pepper, the coriander, the garlic, the paprika powder, the cayenne pepper, and the chicken stock. We're going to give that a bit of time to cool. So we're going to go take a short break. I suggest you do the same, and when we do come back, we're going to go jump straight into the finishing process and the plating of the dish. So join us in a few minutes. We're going to be right back. Don't touch the dial. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Dinner Guide. I am Chef Andy. I'm just going to give you a recap of what you missed out. Basically, what we were doing earlier on in the show, we did a bit of browning of the chicken breast that I had with me earlier. So this is just plain chicken breast. We cooked that on a pan, about 4 to 5 minutes on each side. We added a bit of salt just for seasoning, and we have to let it cool a little bit before we go to the next part. And then in this big beautiful bowl, I have a puree. This is a composition of red bell pepper, coriander, fresh coriander, cayenne pepper, paprika powder, garlic, and a bit of oil and a bit of chicken stock. So basically this is the last bit of the dish. This is the best part of the dish, where you see the dish come to life. So I'm just gonna go jump straight at it. So I have here some chicken stock. I'm just gonna go back to my ingredients here. I've got some chicken stock in the glass. I've got some browned chicken breast, some salt, some sesame seeds, some black olives, some cooking cream, and some bay leaf, and then our red bell pepper pesto. So I'm just gonna let that heat up for a little bit. So remember, for this part, I'm not going to be using any oil at all. I have the pesto is a little runny, so I'm just gonna let that liquid reduce, and that's going to basically give the dish the thickness that we're looking for. I'm also gonna incorporate some cream in there, so it's a very creamy dish. And as I said, we're trying to keep it healthy. Remember, we're also trying to check out the carbs in the dish. We're trying to make sure we're eating as little oil as we can, but the dish still tastes as good as we can make it. So I'm just gonna jump right into it. So I'm gonna grab my red bell pepper. So remember, this was just everything cooked together. We just threw it in a food processor. We just blitzed it a little bit. So as you can see, it's just nicely, evenly cut. And if you don't own a food processor, as I said, do feel free to just give it a nice fine chop. So I'm just gonna go straight into the dish. So this is all gonna go into the pan like so. Right, so give it a little shake, and then to that I'm gonna add the cooking cream. Then this is cooking at low temperature, by the way. Please don't be tempted to raise the temperature, because you're not trying to reduce the sauce, you're just trying to incorporate everything into it. So then I'm also gonna incorporate my bay leaves. About 2 to 3 pieces is okay. You can find those at Oriental shops anywhere in Nairobi. So this is a very, very simple thing to do at home. Most of the ingredients we used are farm fresh, easy to find at the market, easy to find at your local grocer. So now I'm just gonna let that cook for a little bit. I'm gonna turn the heat a little bit, and then I'm gonna add just a little bit of chicken stock to that. Then we're just gonna grab everything else in front of us. So here I have some black olives and some sesame seeds. I've got my browned chicken on the side as well. So I'm just gonna let that mix a little bit there. So I'm gonna turn the heat slightly higher. I'm just trying to get that coconut to really cook through and incorporate all the flavors into the bell pepper pesto. So just give that a little mix like that. And then to that, I'm just going to throw in the chicken bits. So I'm just gonna place them all around like that, spread them evenly around, because this is a part where the chicken is actually gonna get all the juices. It's a bit dry, so basically it's just gonna bring all the juices into it. It's gonna really get the flavors that are incorporated in the pan. So I'm gonna let that cook just for a little bit. And then I'm gonna play around with my red bell pepper. As I said, I saved some of this from earlier. So I'm just gonna show you what we're gonna do with that. So basically, I'm just using a knife and I'm running my knife just right across like that. So basically what you're looking for is very, very thin slices. So I'm gonna take that first chunk out. I'm gonna turn it around just to make sure I get it even. So my hand pressed firmly on the board, my knife just moving slightly, slowly across. Remember to be careful when you do this. You don't want to chop your fingers, you don't want to cut yourself. So I just go slowly, just let the knife go right through. Remember, you've got the knife right between the two layers, so I'm just gonna work the knife right to the end like that. So as you can see, I just have now 3 different pieces. So this was the most inner part. This is the part that has no taste, so we get rid of that. This is now the layer that lays right between the skin and the inside. I can save that for later. But now the part we're looking to use is the most reddest part of the pepper, which is the outer layer. So this is good because it actually pairs up as a garnish. It's got the sweetest part of the pepper, and it's what I'm gonna be using for my garnish. So we're gonna check on our chicken now. It's nice and thick. Just gonna add a bit of chicken stock. I still have some remaining, so please don't waste it. Just let it cook in there. Give that a bit of time to simmer. Right, and then I'm now just going to show you something you can be able to do yourselves at home if you're trying to give your dish that extra look. So the outer, as I said, for the people who missed out, this was just one individual red bell pepper slice combined. So I first cut a thin slice from the inside, and then now I'm left with 2 pieces. So this is what lies right in between the most inner layer and the most outer layer. So I'm also gonna leave that on the side. What we're using is the most reddest part, the sweetest part of the pepper. So now I'm just gonna give that a chop. So what I want is very thin strips from that. So I'm just gonna use my knife. I'm just gonna let my knife work right through like that. You can chop slower. I'm just gonna let my knife do my work for me. So I'm just gonna work my knife right through like that. Very, very simple way to make a garnish. Then I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do with that. So I'm gonna get some water, just normal temperature water from the tap, or you can use distilled water. And I'm gonna throw those in there. Just gonna give those about 2 to 3 minutes to just rest in there. So what we're gonna be able to see much later after that, they're gonna curl up. It actually looks good for presentation. Very simple stuff that you can wow your guests with at home if you're really trying to make that impression with your food. So I'm just gonna let those set aside for a little bit. And then now I've got in front of me, now I've got some black olives, which I'm now going to add last. Remember, these I don't need to cook them, they're just to give the dish color. So I'm now just going to turn that off. Now we're now going to take that off the heat. So I'm just going to add about 1 tablespoon of black olives. I'm gonna give that a small mix like that. Very, very simple dish, very quick, easy to make, very quick for dinner, especially if you're in a hurry or if you've got some leftover roast chicken. Not a bad idea to do the same. If you don't have a machine, remember, if you don't have a machine to make the puree, you can chop it finely. You can also just leave them as chunks, but the ingredients is what makes the dish. So now we're just gonna jump straight into the plating. Just gonna set this here, and I'm going to first take our bay leaves out. So this we're just gonna set aside like that. The aromas are lovely, the smell is coming through, the bay leaf has really done its work. So now we're just gonna put that on our plate. I'm just gonna grab one piece at a time with a bit of the sauce, just like that. Remember, it's a little runny, so you can always just take the chicken bits out. You can leave the sauce to continue cooking down if you want it much thicker. But if you're having this with a side of rice, with a side of maybe naan bread, chapati, I recommend just have a bit of liquid with it on the side. So I'm just gonna finish plating that. So here we are, ladies and gentlemen, our red bell pepper pesto, chicken with cream and cashew nuts and black olives. So that's nicely plated. Actually, I'm gonna just put a bit of that on top. And then last but not least, remember, it's always good to give your plate a bit of a finish. So for that, I've got the red bell pepper. For those who missed out, I've got some chopped red bell pepper strips here, which I'm just gonna place on the board now, just to get rid of all that excess water. So very simple stuff. So as you can be able to see, if you're watching from home, you can see you get those nice, beautiful curls. It's got a nice color to it, very good for garnishing your plate. So all I'm going to do is I'm just gonna play around with those. Just gonna sprinkle them like that. Easy stuff, stuff that appeals to your dish, gives it that nice bit of finish, shows a bit of the effort that you put on your dish as well. And then last but not least, a bit of the sesame seeds. Just gonna sprinkle those right on top like that. And there we go, ladies and gentlemen, our creamy chicken with red bell pepper pesto, black olives and cashew nuts. Feel free to try this at home. Try it for dinner today if you get time. Try it. Send us your comments, send us your reviews on our Facebook page. Follow us as well on BrandPlus TV. And we will catch up again on yet another episode of Dinner Guide. I have been your host, Chef Andy. Thank you for watching. Be blessed.